me. Hello, everybody, and welcome from Tim is in beautiful, sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm in beautiful, sunny downtown Decatur. I guess we're going to call it kind of a mid to late summer webinar. And quite frankly, Tim, this is my favorite webinar that we do all year. I don't know how many I do, in excess of probably a half a dozen or so, but I have Deft Research material on my desk 24/7 that helps me, I don't want to say entertain the brokers across the country, but it gives me a lot of ammunition. The correlation between your data and what turns out after AEP is uncanny. What people are wanting, when they're wanting, how they engage, when they engage, and it really becomes an invaluable asset to our brokers out there. Now, I'm not going to take too much time introducing you. This is Tim Brousseau from our friends at Deft Research, a fellow integrity partner and a wonderful confidant. Tim, I'm just going to let you just take it and run. And if you ever need me to inject in the next few minutes, you let me know. But the stage is all yours. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tim Brousseau.
That was so gracious of you, Steve. My gosh, like I'm sweating and the air conditioning set at 73 in my house right now. No pressure.
No, you're fine.
No, I'm just kidding. The reality is I'm just a pretty face that delivers the insights. It's really the team that's primarily based out of downtown Minneapolis that does all the heavy lifting. But they always say it takes a village, and we're a member of the Integrity Family Village that tries to bring insights to the industry for our fellow partners like yourselves, your downlines, but also we do a lot of work with health insurance carriers too. We do a lot of work with marketing agencies, brick and mortar pharmacies, supplemental benefit vendor, like anybody that has their hands in the health insurance cookie jar tries to come to us because we just survey consumers all throughout the year to better understand what's making them loyal and sticky to their carrier, what's causing them to have friction or anxiety or causing them to have one foot out the door. And we feel like we're a valuable part of the industry, and we look forward to sharing some highlights today from our AEP Gut Check study. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and get rocking and rolling on some data. This is our AEP Gut Check study, where we go ahead and we survey consumers in the middle of the year to try to get an understanding of where are they at with satisfaction, with their plans, with their carrier, whatever it might be. And the whole point of this is to try to get a pulse check on what we think they might do coming up in the upcoming annual election period. The only way we can do that is by surveying consumers. And if you look on the bottom here, we surveyed almost 2,500 consumers from various product lines, MA, MedSup, and Original Medicare only, to better understand how loyal and sticky are you? What do you think you might do this upcoming annual election period? Like, is activity going to be hot? Is it going to be muted compared to what we've seen in years past? This is a pulse check. This is not a prediction. That's not what we do at Deft. The reality is I tried to order a crystal ball from Amazon Prime and they're back ordered forever. So we can't tell you exactly the percentage of consumers that are going to shop or maybe switch this upcoming annual election period, but we look at a whole bunch of data points to try to make an assessment of what we think might happen. And as you hear me talk about today, the ingredients are there for consumers to show increased activity this upcoming election period, which is good when we think about drumming up new business. But it also means that maybe we might have to work a little bit harder securing our current book of business. If there is disruption that are going to come in the form of the annual notice of change document the last week of September, we need to know in these first look meetings. We need to know in these broker rollout meetings, not just the positive changes that are coming, but also the potential negative impacts. We're going to talk about those ingredients today. Last thing I want to point out in the middle here where it says method, we surveyed consumers in the middle of the summer. Why? We want them to use their benefit. Call customer service, pull out your ID card, go to the pharmacy, go to the clinic, go to the doctor's office. The more times that these consumers interact with their plan, their benefit, their carrier, all of a sudden helps us get a better read on if we think they're going to be sticky this upcoming AEP, or if we think activity might be increased. And this is the first slide here that tells us that this upcoming annual election period might be a little hotter in terms of consumer activity, consumer shopping, maybe switching. In the 18 years that we've been doing consumer research in the health insurance space at Deft, we have found this question to be a leading indicator of retention. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to stay with your current carrier the next time you have the opportunity to make a move? Next time's this upcoming annual election period. If you answer 9s and 10s, those are the blue bars. Those are consumers that are loyal to their carrier. They're sticky. They've got no reason to go elsewhere. You answer 0 to 6 in red on the left-hand side, you are an attrition risk. You've got one foot out the door. You have a wandering eye. Now, what we're looking at here is we're looking at the big 3 product lines, left-hand side, MA on top, Med Sup in the middle, Original Medicare only on the bottom. And we're tracking this over a 4-year period for each of these major product lines. And if you look on the top there for Medicare Advantage, if you look at the blue bars on the right-hand side and you look at stickiness, loyalty of beneficiary to carrier in the Medicare Advantage space, it used to be 2/3 of these consumers were loyal to their health insurance carrier and they had no reason to look elsewhere. But now we're down to 6 out of 10. Only 60% of MA beneficiaries are loyal to their carrier. And that 60% is statistically significantly lower than the 64% we had last year. What does that mean? That just means that there's a whole bunch more Medicare Advantage beneficiaries today that are not as loyal to their carrier as they were last year. On the flip side of that, you look at the red bars on the left-hand side. What percentage of consumers have a wandering eye, have one foot out the door? We used to hover around 12%, but now we're statistically significantly higher at 15%. We're seeing that bond between beneficiary and carrier is starting to become stretched. And when all of a sudden frustrations start to build, and all of a sudden you go into the annual election period and your ANOC comes and you see marketing, and all of a sudden you work with a health insurance sales professional and you hear about new opportunities that are out there in terms of plan offerings or benefit offerings and things of the like, that gets consumers to ultimately look around and maybe make a move. But it's not just Medicare Advantage beneficiaries that we see are stretching that bond with their carrier. Look at Med Sup. It wasn't but 2-3 years ago. 2/3 of Med Sup beneficiaries were loyal to their carrier. Now we're down to 6 out of 10. And if you look at Original Medicare only consumers on the bottom, we've bottomed out at 58%. Frustrations are building with beneficiaries. We're seeing new plan offerings, new benefit offerings, new pricing arrangements. These pique the interest of these senior beneficiaries that are in entitlement programs, that are trying to stretch their Medicare dollars as far as possible. This is the first ingredient that tells us activity this upcoming annual election period might be hotter than we saw the previous year. But because we see the loyalty that beneficiaries have with their carrier is not as strong as it used to be. About 4 years ago, we started to create these segments of consumers to better understand, was their plan that they're in a great fit for them? We asked these beneficiaries 3 questions. Question 1, how confident are you that you're in the right plan? Question 2, like we just talked in the previous slide, how loyal are you? How likely are you to renew? And then question number 3, just a straight self-assessment of how you feel like that plan fits for you. We created these 4 segments on the right-hand side. And if you look on the top there, 60% of MA beneficiaries, dark blue bar, fit into this bucket that we call loyal and happy. I'm loyal to my carrier, and I'm really happy and thrilled with the plan that I'm in. Those consumers really have no need to look elsewhere. You look at third from the top. I'm loyal to my carrier, but kind of indifferent about the plan, meaning I'm most likely going to stick with my carrier, but there might be other better plans out there and I could make another move. You add those 2 numbers together, about 2/3 of the market, we would say, are pretty loyal to their carrier. They might look around for a different plan option, but they also might sit it out. On the flip side of that, that tells us that about 1/3 of these beneficiaries could be on the move. You look at the second set of bars there. I'm only satisfied with my carrier, not loyal to it, but I'm only satisfied. And I have this discerning feeling about the plan. There's a whole bunch of other ones that are out there. And if you look on the bottom there, the consumers who have had buyer's remorse. Maybe I made a change to a new plan. Maybe I made a change to a new carrier, but I'm not exactly tickled pink and thrilled about that. These are the 1/3 of consumers that you might look at and say, they have the wandering eye. There is a high likelihood that these consumers could ultimately make a move. And when we tracked these segments over the last 18 months, they're going in the wrong direction. If you look at the purple dotted line on the top, these are the consumers that are loyal to their carrier and happy with their plan and really have no reason to go elsewhere. Well, back in April of 2022, 71% of MA beneficiaries were loyal and happy, sticky. The bond was tight between beneficiary and carrier. But if you run that purple dashed line over to the right-hand side, 10 full point decrease down to 61%. On the flip side of that, you look at some of those lines on the bottom, solid yellow. I'm only satisfied with my carrier, not exactly thrilled with my plan. That's up almost 10 points over the last 18 months. And if you look at the red line on the bottom, these are the consumers that have had buyer's remorse, 3 times higher over a short 18-month period. Another ingredient that we would say tells us that this upcoming annual election period might see more activity. But keep in mind, activity isn't always just new opportunity, new business. This also means that if consumers are frustrated with their current carrier, they're frustrated with their current plan, and they're clients of yours, we might have to spend more time working with our existing clients this upcoming annual election period. What can we learn from first look meetings? What can we learn from broker rollout meetings that can help us get ahead of some of that? We all know that ANOCs are coming the last week of September. We should have a good idea of our clients and if they're going to get hairy, scary ANOCs. And if so, we need to be prepared to talk to them to help get them transitioned to maybe a new plan or a new carrier or a new product so that we then can focus on the opportunity of also drumming up new business. Last slide in this section, we ask consumers straight up, what's the likelihood that you're actually going to shop around this upcoming annual election period? It's hard to ask a consumer in June if you're going to switch because they haven't even received their ANOC. They haven't been exposed to marketing yet. But we see here on the left-hand side, 21% of consumers, dark blue bars, tell us quite very or extremely likely that they're going to shop around this upcoming annual election period. To put that 21% in perspective, last annual election period, the activity that we saw in the market was 43%. 34% shopped, 11% switched. We're halfway there with consumers feeling like they're going to be active this upcoming annual election period, and they haven't received their ANOC. They haven't been exposed to marketing. They haven't talked to you yet. They haven't heard about new plans. They haven't heard about new cares. They haven't heard about new benefits. That helps bridge some of the gap between what consumers are going to do right now and the overall activity this upcoming annual election period. The bond between beneficiary and carrier is being stretched. Frustrations are starting to build. All of these ingredients tell us we're not predicting what's going to happen this upcoming annual election period. But when we step back and look at the data suggests that this upcoming annual election period is going to show an increase in activity. Speaking of frustrations that consumers have with their plan and their carrier, the reality is they will run into issues. We ask consumers on the left-hand side, in Medicare Advantage, did you experience any utilization issues? I mean, we're talking seniors on a fixed income that are balancing a number of conditions, that are on a strict drug regimen. They need this health insurance. And if you look at the purple bar on the upper left, almost half of Medicare Advantage beneficiaries told us they had some form of utilization issues. Now, if you look at the bars on the bottom, the number of times you have utilization issues can increase or decrease your loyalty with the carrier. And if you look on the far bottom, for Medicare Advantage beneficiaries that had 4 or more utilization issues, cost surprises, access issues, supplemental benefit frustrations, claim denial, all of these are potential issues. You look at the red bar on the bottom, when I start to have multiple utilization issues, now all of a sudden I start to show attrition risk. How many times do you get called from your clients over the course of the year with frustrations because they had a claim denied? They had to go through the prior authorization process. They had a drug that got adjudicated at tier 4 and they had to pay a 33% coinsurance. They couldn't figure out the supplemental benefits and how to maximize those things. When you hear about those things, you have to realize those consumers are now not exactly thrilled about the plan that they're in. On the right-hand side, for all of those MA beneficiaries that told us they had utilization issues, we said, tell us, multiple response, what happened? Well, all of a sudden, we started to see this trend emerge of a 4-legged stool of why we need to understand certain aspects of the benefits, because these 4 legs of the stool tell us some of the biggest frustrations that these consumers are experiencing. Look at the red box on the right-hand side. These are pillars of health insurance. 13% of consumers said they had drug coverage issues. A senior beneficiary on average takes 4 maintenance prescription drugs a month. They are on a strict drug regimen. They have to have access to their prescription drugs, and we have to know formularies inside and out. 13%, a pillar, one of the legs of the stool that we have to know inside and out. It means a lot to these consumers. Look at the other red box near the bottom there. 9%, understanding the provider network. Didn't understand in and out of network. Didn't understand the referral process. Didn't understand the prior authorization process. Didn't understand the quantity limit process. These are frustrations that start to build with these consumers when they can't get access to care. We don't just need to know formularies inside and out. We have to know networks inside and out. And then there's 2 important legs of the stool left. Look at on the top. 1/5 of beneficiaries are telling us they are extremely frustrated with these flexible allowances. How easy is it to compare a $1,000 to a $2,500 to a $5,000 flexible allowance? It's easy to compare that. But what happens when flexible allowance A covers more services than flexible allowance B and C? Do we get into that with our clients? What happens when there's different purses associated with it? $5,000 flexible allowance, but you only have a $1,000 dental purse and a $1,000 vision purse and a $250 transportation purse and a $150 OTC purse. When all of a sudden there start to be parameters or limitations or stipulations around these flexible allowances, and we don't go into those in detail, these consumers start to become frustrated. We've got to know formulary inside and out. We have to know network inside and out. We also have to truly understand these flexible allowances inside and out, so we're setting these consumers up for success. And then the 4th leg of the stool, which is starting to emerge. You look near the bottom there in that black box. 10% of Medicare Advantage beneficiaries had a claim denied. Claims denial are in the news right now for all the wrong reasons. And I don't want to get into it in great detail, and I'm not going to name the carrier by name, but there's a national carrier out there who all of a sudden started to use AI, artificial intelligence, to review and deny claims without having a medical director review them. All of a sudden, that has led to a class action lawsuit with this Medicare Advantage national carrier that's out there. Consumers look at this health insurance and realize I'm balancing a number of conditions. I am on a strict drug regimen. The last thing I need are prohibitions for getting the care that I need. But all of a sudden, if we don't explain to these consumers in-network, out-of-network, prior authorizations, referrals, step therapies, quantity limits, all of a sudden they think that, hey, this is the carrier prohibiting me from getting the care that I am told that I need by my doctor or my pharmacist. We now have to be more proficient in explaining to these consumers what it means to live within the confines of an HMO network, the value of it, the coordination of care that's going on. You've got a quarterback that's the primary care doctor. That doctor in an HMO with referrals and prior authorizations knows exactly what's going on when you go see a specialist or you get a test done. Do you have to jump through some hoops with prior author referrals? Absolutely. But these consumers need to know that going in. So we can't just be proficient in network and drug. We have to know claims denials. We also have to know flexible allowances extremely well inside and out so that we can educate these consumers. To follow up on flexible allowances, because supplemental benefits is a driver of switching these days. That means that when consumers make a move during the AEP or the OEP, supplemental benefits matter in that decision-making process. Well, we ask consumers here on slide 9, what type of issues did you have around these flexible allowances? You look at smack dab in the middle, 39%. It was hard to find detailed information on how much money I was allowed to spend on the different services. It goes back to the purses that I was talking about. We can all blame a national carrier for this. This happened a few years ago when in the last minute, they said we're going to put out a flex card, but we're going to start to put limitations and parameters around how much they can spend on the different services. We can't just highlight a $2,000 flexible allowance or a $5,000 flexible allowance if consumers can't use all of that on a specific service or a specific silo of benefits. There are purses out there, we have to explain it. 42%, second from the top, unable to use the locations that I wanted. I mean, think about just the example of a vision benefit. Can I go to the lens crafter that's 2 blocks away from my house? Or do I have to go to some other retail location? Is my dentist even in the network? Can I go to my dentist's office? I mean, if you look at dental benefits these days, you look at these flexible allowances, more and more we're seeing dental networks associated with that. Do we know that inside and out? Can we speak to that? And 43% on top, unexpected limits on how much they can use. That goes back to the purse sizes. $5,000 allowance, but if you can only use $1,000 on dental, we have to explain this. The more time that we spend getting into supplemental benefit details at point of sale helps these consumers minimize the hiccups and the stumbles that they have when they start to use these benefits. We cannot just put the onus on the health insurance carrier to deliver that information via onboarding. If we are, we're putting a lot of faith in those carriers, but they're our clients. And the more time that we spend understanding their health needs, and the more time we spend getting them up to speed on the nuances of all of these benefits, is setting them up for success and setting them up for stickiness. The reality is consumers are going to have issues with their plans. On the left-hand side, of all the MA beneficiaries that we service that had utilization issues, 22% of them show a high level of attrition risk. They've already got one foot out the door. This is what happens when they don't understand their benefits. This is what happens when they don't feel empowered to maximize their benefits. Is it our responsibility or is it the carrier's responsibility? We would make the argument at Deft Research that it's a joint responsibility, but you cannot put all the onus on them. On the right-hand side, red bars, for those consumers in Medicare Advantage who have had issues and show high level of attrition risk, what are those issues associated with? Those big 4 legs of the stool that I talked about. Look at number 1, network issues. I didn't realize my doctor was in the network. Look at the 4th one down there in the red box. Provider referral denied. Consumers do not want claims denial. They do not want limited access. Look at fifth on the top, drug coverage issues. We have to know this inside and out, and 30% of consumers near the bottom had a claim denied. When we think about where we're going to put our clients, do those carriers do good on member experience? Do those carriers deny claims at a higher rate than some of the other carriers that are out there? If so, it's leading to these consumers showing a high level of attrition risk. And on the left-hand side, we found that 7% of Medicare Advantage beneficiaries who heard about a friend or family member having a claim denied said they wouldn't even consider that carrier that denied the claim. Like, that's how impactful claims denial is. Bob down the street couldn't get that test done because his carrier denied the claim. Why would I possibly go with that carrier? I could have a claim denied. I could have care impacted. This has started to become the fourth leg of the stool. Is it as big as provider access? No. Is it as big as drug coverage? No. Is it as big as supplemental benefits? No. But when you have a national carrier that has a class action lawsuit against them because they've been denying claims with artificial intelligence, and you have consumers here that are hearing about claims denial from friends and family, and they're giving a stiff arm to that carrier because it's prohibiting those beneficiaries from getting care. And now they're saying, I'm not even going to consider them. We have to understand the clients and the carriers that we're putting them in. Because if all of a sudden claims denial starts to become an issue, we're going to probably have to move our clients into a different carrier. Not everything is dark and gloom going into this upcoming annual election period. I do want to spin it around and get a little positive here. We asked consumers here on slide 12, thinking ahead to this upcoming annual election period, what are you expecting to look for? What are you expecting to look out or look into? Well, the top two are two big supplemental benefits that we talk about a lot at Deft Research: dental and vision. When we think about supplemental benefits, and we research it all the time, I always equate supplemental benefits to a sports league. And when you think about sports leagues, you have dental, which is the commissioner of the supplemental benefits sports league. You have vision and hearing, who are the conference heads. And then all the other supplemental benefits are just playing in the league. That's kind of how it flows. And you've got some supplemental benefits that are really good some years and compete. You've got other supplemental benefits that turn out to be wild cards. And then you've got those other supplemental benefits that are like my beloved Chicago Bears that are just down in the bottom of the cellar. But the reality is, supplemental benefits matter so much to senior consumers. The benefits that they get above and beyond what Medicare covers. We've got to talk about these. We've got to pitch these types of things. Look at about 6 or 7 from the top. 37% of beneficiaries said they're expecting to look into Part B premium givebacks, putting more money back in my Social Security check every single month to use on things that matter the most to me. What matters to beneficiaries? Well, heck, they're on a fixed income. Anything that's cost more now than it did 2 years ago, things that they're going to want to spend money on. Even though inflation's come down, groceries are still up 8% year over year. We all feel the pinch. Whether you shop at Jewel, whether you shop at Target, whether you shop at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Costco, it doesn't matter. Food costs are up. Consumers can use that more money in their Social Security check to pay for groceries. Heck, gas is back on the rise right now. For those seniors that are driving, all of a sudden, that's more money in their bank account every single month to put more money or to put gas in their car. So this is what they're expecting to look forward to. But then we flipped the question around a little bit, and we said, which benefits would you be most excited to have in 2024? This is like an intensity level question. This is like a prioritization of things that you should be talking about in terms of supplemental benefits when you're working with your existing clients and your new clients. And look at the number one thing on that list: Part B premium give back. Only about 9% of MA beneficiaries today are in a plan with a Part B premium give back. But if you service clients in a service area with the Part B premium give back, 2 times as many are excited to have that as part of their benefits. 18%, only 9% have it today. 18% would say, I'd love to have it. And when we surveyed agents that are about to come into Medicare for the first time, and we asked them, which product are you excited about entering in? All the ones that said Medicare Advantage, half of them said the reason I'm going MA is because I'm all excited about these supplemental benefits. And the number one supplemental benefit I'm excited about is this Part B premium give back, putting more money back in my Social Security check. We have to talk dental. We have to talk vision. We have to talk hearing. We have to know flexible allowances inside and out. But if there are carriers that are offering Part B premium givebacks in your service area, it would be remiss for us to not talk about those benefits. Let's switch gears here. Let's talk for the last 15 minutes here, and we can open up some time for questions. Steve, we have them at the end there. Let's talk about how consumers want to work with you, how they feel about working with health insurance sales professionals. What can we do to be better this upcoming annual election period? Well, we asked consumers here on the left-hand side, who worked with somebody like you? Where did you meet? And on the right-hand side, we flipped it around and said, where do you prefer to meet? I mean, you look third from the top, video chat, Skype, Zoom, Teams, Google Meets. I mean, that was big in 2020. We had to adapt. Shelter in place, economy was shutting down. Nobody wanted to go outside, wear a mask, didn't want to be physical with other people. But that's since come back down to pre-pandemic levels. Are we getting electronic with our clients and our prospects? Are we taking a digital approach? Do we send emails to confirm appointments? Do we send emails following up as a thank you? Or maybe delivering PDFs to them afterwards with follow-up information? You look at fourth from the top, we see consumers, there's a willingness to work via email on the left-hand side. There's a desirability that's even higher on the right-hand side. We publish a duals digital tools study, every single year, and we see the face of the senior consumers evolving, more tech savvy every single year. But at the end of the day, this is a relationship business. You look at the top, they want to see the whites of your eyes. You look at second from the top, they want to hear excitement and empathy in your voice when you're talking about different plan options and making recommendations. And we can never lose sight of the value that you all bring to these consumers by being willing to sit down with them and spend time with them and pouring through different options. You have the option to contract with one or multiple carriers. We ask consumers on the left-hand side who worked with health insurance sales professionals like you, how much you agree with these statements. You look at third from the top, right in the middle there, 42% of consumers said they strongly or completely agree that when they met with a health insurance sales professional, they presented a variety of health insurance carrier options. Consumers want choice. They don't want to feel like they're being pigeonholed into a certain plan. They want to feel like they're getting multiple carrier options and multiple plan options because they feel like they're getting the best options that are available out there. 60%, second from the top, said that agent felt like it had my best interest at heart. There was compassion, there was empathy, there was a connection there. And 62% on the top said that agent considered my overall healthcare needs. It wasn't just checking the doc box. It wasn't just checking the formulary box. All of a sudden, we have to realize with these supplemental benefits that are out there, they can help with transportation issues. They can help with food insecurities. A lot of plans out there will help people pay their utility bills. Transportation for medical and non-medical. All these flexible allowances that help with vision, dental, hearing, OTC, acupuncture, pet support, you name it. But until you sit down and connect with that beneficiary, you cannot do an assessment of their overall healthcare needs. That's the value you all bring to the industry. And we see here on slide 17, on the bottom, when I work with an agent and that agent provides me a variety of carriers, not just one, but multiple carriers, only 13% of those consumers on the bottom in red showed an attrition risk with their carrier, had one foot out the door. The bond was not tight. But look at on the top there. If my health insurance agent only presents me with one health insurance carrier option, we might have talked MedSup and MA. We might have talked 5 or 6 plans, but it was only from one carrier. Now we see a 50% increase in consumers showing a high level of attrition risk. This is why we need to understand the needs. We need to understand what the different carriers are offering and the different plan options that are out there. And we should be presenting a variety of the best options for these consumers. When we present the best options, we can start to make that personal connection. On the left-hand side, we ask consumers, did you feel a personal connection with the agent? We see on the left-hand side that about 60% of beneficiaries said they mostly strongly or completely agree that that connection was built between me and the health insurance sales professional. We dug into plans. They understood my needs. We talked about some options. We got into the best plan. And when all of a sudden you start to build that personal connection, you start to build trust. And when you build that trust, you have earned the opportunity to talk about other types of insurance. On the left-hand side, we ask consumers that work with agents just like yourselves, did the agent discuss other types of insurance with you? Did they talk about dental? Did they talk about vision? Did they talk about hearing, long-term care? Look at near the bottom there. 40% of Americans will have cancer at some point in their life. Cancer insurance is an option for these consumers. 100% of Americans will pass away at some point. Final expense is there to help alleviate some of those costs when the beneficiary passes away. A small percentage of these consumers said, the agent talked to me about these other options. But when we make that personal connection, we've earned the right to talk about that, and we're leaving money on the table if we don't. Because on the right-hand side, when we ask consumers who work with agents like yourself, who said the agent did not discuss these benefits with me, but then they said I would have liked if they did. It would have been great if they talked about long-term care insurance. I would have liked to learn more about critical insurance. 13% said I would have liked to talk about cancer. 12% said final expense. Think back over the last 2 to 3 years. Think back of all those meetings where you signed somebody up for a health insurance benefit plan, but you didn't talk about long-term care, or you didn't talk about cancer insurance, or you didn't talk about final expense. How much commission have you left on the table over the last couple of years? When you make that personal connection, you have earned the right and the trust of that beneficiary to talk about additional types of health insurance. And on the right-hand side, these consumers are saying, I would have liked to learn more. It would have helped them to provide coverage. It would have helped you satisfy them, maybe retain them, but also could have bolstered your checkbook. We can take multiple approaches when we sit down with these beneficiaries. It's a relationship business. We want to feel that personal connection. And when we ask these consumers, how do you want to work with an agent? 72% on top said, I want a consultative approach. Not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Not a sit down, these are the options, take A or take B. No, 72% said, you know what? Let me understand your health insurance needs. Let me understand your healthcare needs. What are you going through? What's your financial tolerance? Once we do that, we can start to explain the pros, but also the cons. I mean, how many times do we only talk about the positives of a plan and not talk about the negatives? Not talk about claim denial, not talk about referrals, not talk about prior authorizations, not talk about purses on flexible allowances, Those are only cons when all of a sudden somebody tries to use the benefit and they have a cost surprise or an access surprise. I would say we should talk about this from a pros and a transparency point of view. Spending more time talking about the nuances, the hoops they might have to jump through, and rightfully so if you're in an HMO and a managed care network. Spending more time on the consultative approach will get these consumers up to speed and understand their benefits, so it minimizes the hiccups. It minimizes the stumbles. Slide 21, we ask consumers here about attitudes in terms of selecting a plan with my agent. How much do you agree with these statements? I always like to focus on the strong and completely agree, which is the dark green. Look at second from the top, 59%. I want to hear about details of several plans. That lets me know that that agent knows what they're talking about. It's not just the details of one plan. We need to be well-versed in the details of plans from multiple carriers. 65% on top. Why do consumers want to work with you? I want to know that the agent is putting in the effort, the work to find the best option for me. The only way we can do that is if we know flexible allowances inside and out. The only way we can do that is if we're contracted with multiple carriers and we present multiple carriers. The only way we can do that is when we sit down with these beneficiaries and we understand their healthcare needs. Then we can make the best recommendations for them. And last slide here before we open up to any questions that anybody might have, we ask these consumers, tell us top 3 reasons that would make a really good agent in your eyes. Well, the top 5 go back to the 4 legs of the stool that I was talking about. Got to make sure the doctors are in the network. We have to know networks inside and out. 39% second from the top. Explain the details of how the benefits work. Think about all these flexible allowances, the networks associated with them, the purses associated with them, the services that are available and not available. 35% point out the limitations of the carriers. This carrier denies claims at a higher rate than the other carrier. They might have really good plans. They might have really good costs. They might have really good access. They might have really good benefits, but you might run into claims now. I'm hearing that their member experience is not all that it's cracked up to be. Point it out. Consumers want to know that. Consumers are not shopping and buying on logic. They're purchasing and buying on emotion. You have to help them understand the logic of why they should be going with A versus B. 32% presents you with a variety of options that are out there, and 25 goes back to the formulary. You've got to go over the list of prescription drugs. That might be more important this upcoming AEP than ever. Think about the Inflation Reduction Act. Think about the fact that the 5% in catastrophic coverage, co-insurance, is going away. Health insurance carriers have to pay for that. What does that mean? Do we think carriers are going to take that 5% and just swallow it, accept it on the bottom line? No. There's going to be an increase in cost on Part D benefits this upcoming 2024 plan year. They're going to be delivered in ANOX. Drugs are going to move tiers. Formularies are going to get skinny. Pharmacies are going to come in and out of network. Deductibles could come back. Co-pays could move to co-insurance. All of these things are going to impact the RX benefit this upcoming annual election period. The ingredients are there for an increase in activity this upcoming AEP. That might send off these big sirens and bells and rainbows and say, hey, that's great. We have an opportunity to land more business. But that also might mean this upcoming annual election period, you also have to work a little bit harder to stabilize your existing members, especially if they're going to get hairy, scary ANOX the last week of September, going into marketing on 10/1 and going into AEP on 10/15. The reality is they want to work with you. They want to work with health insurance sales professionals. Beneficiaries are not confident enough to make decisions on their own. They're not confident enough to buy on emotion. They need someone like you to reality check them. sit down with them, listen to them, understand their needs, present a variety of options, and then make a consultative recommendation. Doing so can really increase the satisfaction of these consumers, get them into the right plan, and hopefully stick with you for a long period of time. Now, I know we went through a ton of information there, and at this point, I'd love to open up to any questions that anybody might have.
I tell you what, Tim, I think you just hit the nail on the head at my previous comment about how I so look forward to this webinar, just the information that you provide and you distill from all of those phone calls. It's just absolutely spectacular. I do think we're going to have an increase in activity. I've been privileged to see a couple of our PDP plans are going to be, I think, going up in price a little bit this year. So I think that typically drives a whole lot of consumer curiosity about what else is out there. There's several tools available to us here through Medicare Center, Medicare.gov. I love the opportunity that you expand on, especially when we're talking to our people, if they're in front of us, a cancer plan. Just know what the cost of a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 check for a cancer benefit cost. You can have a laminated piece right there in front of you where you can give somebody a ballpark. There's a couple of companies that are coming out with a spectacular short-term care policy. Both of those two policies dovetail well, whether I've got a Medicare supplement, Medicare Advantage, or even if I'm simply going on original Medicare only. So just a lot of food for thought. We're going to open it up to everybody, see what we got going on out there. But I will tell you, man, you covered an awful lot from A to Z, and we certainly do appreciate it. I don't see anything popping in the window, Tim. Maybe that's what you did such a wonderful job.
Well, as always, we're here to help. Any questions come through now
We'll pass them on. We really will. I mean, it's I can't wait to get my hands on some hard copy, some stuff that we can just keep here without disseminating any of that information out, because it is an invaluable tool as we talk to brokers across the country, simply about, what are the trends, what's happening. We all know that historically, the ancillary benefits, the dental, the vision, the hearing, the transportation issues that some of the people have got are all being wrapped up inside these insurance policies. We can't sell to that, but just like you say, we've got to be very versed in those products. So
yeah,
a lot of good stuff here. It looks like we got a couple things coming in. Go ahead.
Can you see those, Tim?
I saw Ann Taylor either was high-fiving me or raising her hand. I couldn't tell which one.
Yeah, Ann, if you will put your question in the Q&A and we'll try to get an answer for you. But Patrick asks, was that a 5% increase in costs you mentioned?
So the 5% is so how the Part D portion of the Medicare benefit works today is you have the different coverage levels of cost. And once you hit a certain price point of paying out of pocket and the carrier's paying it, it's called catastrophic coverage. And in catastrophic coverage today, the beneficiary is responsible for a 5% coinsurance on all costs above and beyond. I think it's like, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000. And that can be a lot of money for beneficiaries. But because of the Inflation Reduction Act starting in 2024, in catastrophic coverage, the beneficiary does not have to pay a 5% coinsurance. So that means that the carrier has to absorb the 5%. And the carrier is not just going to say, we're going to take 5% off the bottom line. They're going to say, what can we do to make up this 5%? And that's already starting to lead to what we've heard, and Steve has seen in probably rollouts, is that there's some Part D benefit changes that are coming, whether it's standalone or on the MAPD portion. That's the first one. The second one for 2025 is there's going to be a maximum out of pocket for the Part D portion of the benefit. And that maximum out of pocket is going to be $2,000. So what does that mean? Every time a beneficiary spends what would be up to $2,000 and all the drug costs above, the carrier has to absorb it. And if the carrier has to absorb it, are they going to take it on the bottom line? No. They're going to change formulary, they're going to change cost, they're going to change pharmacy network, all those types of things are going to be changed. And then that's going to result in more costs for the beneficiary. So be aware, understand what carriers are doing on their Part D portion of the benefit. It will impact your members for 2024 and 2025.
Again, opening up that very discussion about these ancillary, is it a hospital indemnity plan, a cancer plan, just to help offset this stuff, a short-term care, because exactly right. Nothing is free. And these insurance companies have been in business for a long time. They are better, in my opinion, than the government being in our healthcare system. I think it's much more efficient. We can clearly see for the dollars that are being spent in the MA world, they're able to provide an awful lot. Where I think we see as a population of brokers that as a beneficiary becomes unhealthy and needs more care, that sometimes it raises more issues inside these Medicare Advantage products. So to help offset this, again, like you say, 50% of the population is going to have some form of cancer, have a cancer policy sitting there ready to go. It just begs for us to sit there and provide more products to put dollars in their pocket when they need it.
Yep.
It's there.
Okay, we have one more question. Are there any trends appearing for MedSup products offering ancillary benefits out of the need to compete with MA plans?
You know, it's a great question. We do some work with MedSup carriers on ancillary products. The hard part for MedSup carriers to have ancillary products embedded in their MedSup plan offerings is it leads to a direct increase in monthly premium. And that's what you're competing on with MedSup. I mean, an F is a G's a G, an N's an N's, a C's a C. It really gets down to premium comparison. And so many times health insurance carriers on the MedSup side of the house are saying, let's be as competitive we can with our premium for our MedSup policy, and let's offer ancillary products over here, and let's enroll them separately. Let's price them accordingly. Let's get them what they need. Let's not assume that everybody's going to want dental, everybody's going to want vision, and then we have to extrapolate those costs across the MedSup premium across the board. So, yeah, it's we're not quite there.
You're exactly correct. I see some people that we've got a national carrier that's got a G, and we have a G plus. The plus is priced $20, $30 more, and it's got a dental vision benefit to it, or just a plain dental benefit to it.
Yeah.
And it's very attractive, very attractive. But again, they can't absorb that inside that cost of that MedSup plan. They have to pass that along to the consumer.
I'm going to use G plus. I like that. It just sounds cool.
Yeah, we've got one out right now. There has been one out for, I think, at least 1 year, if not 2 years. We've got some companies out there that are putting in a little plus.
Yeah, great.
So, Tim, I don't see anything else popping in here. That's how good of a job you did. Once again, I can't tell you, this is the most important, the most informative webinar we do on an annual basis. It provides such a vast array of data that we can all take back to our shops and do better with. I mean, you've showed us how to get better. You've showed us how to make more sales. I can't tell you how much the entire organization appreciates what you guys do and everybody on this webinar. So if I don't see any more questions pop there in the next 2 seconds, we're going to say thank you for everything. We'll see you next time. And hopefully we can get one in between now and next August, maybe another webinar.
That'd be great. Hey, we're always here to help, Steve. Always. I hope you guys were entertained. Unlike our little guy over back here who's just sleeping on the couch. But I hope you learned a couple tidbits of knowledge to just be more successful this upcoming AEP. We're always here to help.
Tim, thank you very much, bud.